Councillor Rayner.
Mr Speaker, inflation is about to hit 6%. That's the highest rate since the early 90s, when the Conservatives have been in power for over a decade, marred in their sleaze with a divided party, a Prime Minister losing the support of his backbenchers and governing shambolically, and a Labour Party, Mr Speaker, who is ready to take over and provide the Britain with a better future. Familiar stuff, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister promised wage rises would offset inflation. They haven't and they won't. Millions of British workers now face a further pay cut, and his Chancellor is handing them a tax hike. What will the Prime Minister do to get a grip of this?
Mr Speaker, I know that it's great to be here with the Right Honourable Lady, the Shadow Secretary of State, for the future of work. We know the future of the job that she has in mind. But I wish her well. But what we are focused on, Mr Speaker, is delivering jobs for the British people. And it is a quite extraordinary thing that there are now record numbers of people in work, Mr Speaker, 420,000 more than there were before the pandemic began, Mr Speaker. We have youth unemployment at a record low, Mr Speaker, and never let it be forgotten that when Omicron hit this country, Mr Speaker, what was their instinctive response? They said, yep, that's right, Mr Speaker, they said they needed a roadmap, that we needed a roadmap to lockdown. If we listened to them, we wouldn't have anybody working at all, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, I've heard on the grapevine there might be a vacancy for Prime Minister soon, so maybe I should have aspirations. The Prime Minister pretends it's not his fault. He blames the global forces. He blames the market. Mr Speaker, we're an aspirational party. Maybe the Prime Minister needs to be more aspirational for this country. But, Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister has made political choices that has led us into this place. His government has failed to invest in long-term energy security. His government decided to let gas storages collapse. His government let the energy market run out of control. 27 energy companies have gone bust in the last year. And now household bills are going through the roof. Or as the money-saving expert Martin Lewis put it, there will be a seismic hit on energy bills. Can't the Prime Minister see what's happening yet again? Working families are picking up the tab for his incompetence.
Well, Mr Speaker, she talks about energy. I think the House will agree she's got a lot more energy than the current leader of the opposition, and I welcome her point, because actually what the government is doing is supporting people throughout the pandemic. 2.2 million people supported with the Warm Homes discount, Mr Speaker, worth £140 per week, which we introduced. Pensioners supported with the £300 winter fuel payments, Mr Speaker. Cold weather payments worth £25 a week for 4 million people up and down the country, Mr Speaker. That is what we are doing, Mr Speaker, and that is on top of everything we're doing to support people on low incomes, cutting taxes for those on universal credit, increasing the living wage, £1,000 more for everybody on the living wage, up record sums. And, Mr Speaker, let me just remind the House of the fundamental difference between that party and this government. They would have kept us in lockdown in July, Mr Speaker. When Omicron hit, they were calling for further restrictions. That's right, Mr Speaker. We've been able to keep this country moving and keep the economy growing and keep the money coming into people's pockets, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, I'll tell you what this Prime Minister is doing. He's increasing taxes to the hard-working people of this country. That's what he's doing. That's what he didn't promise in his manifesto, but that's what he's doing to the people. And I quote, Mr Speaker, the poorest households spend 3 times more on their income on household energy bills than the richest households spend. VAT on energy bills makes gas and electricity more expensive. Not my words, Mr Speaker, but the words of the Prime Minister himself. When energy bills are going to be hiked again in April, any decent government would find a way to help British families. Even the Tory backbenchers have finally accepted Labour's call to cut VAT on energy bills. So will he finally stand up to his Chancellor and do the same?
Mr Speaker, let me remind, because she wasn't obviously listening to the previous answer, let me remind her the Warm Homes discount already, 2.2 million people supported to the tune of £140 a week. Pensioners supported with £300 through the winter fuel payment. The cold weather payments for 4 million people. And they now have the effrontery, Mr Speaker, having campaigned, and she did too, I think, didn't she? I think. Oh yes, she campaigned to remain in the EU. Oh yes, she did. They now have the barefaced cheek to come to this House of Commons and say that they want to cut VAT on fuel, when everybody knows, and he did too, Mr Speaker, everybody knows full well it would be absolutely impossible if they were to do what Labour would do and go back into the EU, remain aligned with the EU single market. That is the objective of the Labour Party. They can't be trusted on Brexit, Mr Speaker, and they can't be trusted on the economy.
So, Prime Minister, how's it going? Are you okay? The Prime Minister and his Chancellor have presided over economic mismanagement, low growth and neglect of our public services. And their resolution to fix this, whacking more taxes on working people. Combine the tax rise with soaring energy prices, and the average family faces a hit of £1,200. This is an iceberg, Mr Speaker, right ahead. So will he finally stop and change course?
Order. We started the new year not in the way we left the last one. You did give me an assurance we were going to try and calm down. So if we can, it will be helpful. Angela Rayner.
Mr Speaker, £1,200 hit right away. So will he finally stop and change course, or will he plough on towards what will be a disaster for thousands of families?
Mr Speaker, as a direct result of what we've already done on universal credit, a single mother with 2 kids is £1,200 better off, Mr Speaker, as a result of what we've done with the living wage, Mr Speaker, introduced by this Conservative government. They never let it be forgotten. Everybody on the living wage has seen another £1,000 in their income every year, Mr Speaker. But that's not the point. The fundamental, and we will continue to look after people throughout the pandemic. But the fundamental point is that because of the steps the government has taken, because of the tough decisions we've taken, because of the balanced and the proportionate approach that we've taken to COVID, we've been able to keep this country open, keep our economy moving, more open than any other comparable economy in Europe. And they know it, Mr Speaker, and they opposed it every step of the way. And that's why people are seeing increases in employment and increases in their pay packets as well.
Rayner.
Mr Speaker, this Prime Minister always gives with one hand and takes away with the other. Under this Prime Minister, the country is worse off. Prices for everyday goods are soaring out of control. Hard-earned savings will be hit, and the wages of working people won't go as far. Inflation isn't an economic theory. It has serious consequences for people's lives. We need serious solutions, Mr Speaker, to stop people falling into poverty or debt. Instead, Mr Speaker, we have this Prime Minister and his incompetent leadership. And every time we are faced with a challenge, he denies there's a problem. He tries to laugh it off. He looks for someone else to blame. So can I suggest to the Prime Minister, it's not about brushing your hair, it's about brushing up on your act. Does he accept accept his incompetence is taking our country backwards and costing our country dear.
No, Mr. Speaker. What I tell the House and tell the country is that Labour incompetence has ruined this country time and time again, and there has never been a Labour government that has left office with unemployment lower than when they came in. And what is her answer, Mr. Speaker, to the energy crisis? It is to nationalise our energy. It was, in fact, Labour's failure to invest in supply over a decade or more that reduced our ability to have cheaper, cleaner energy, Mr. Speaker. We are rectifying that. We're taking the tough decisions that this country needs for the long term. And it's because we've taken those tough decisions, Mr. Speaker, because we've taken the balanced and proportionate approach that we have, that they opposed every step of the way, that we have youth unemployment at a record low. We have 420,000 more people in jobs now than there were before the pandemic began. And, Mr. Speaker, we not only have the most open society and economy in Europe, but we also have the fastest economic growth in the G7. Completely contrary to what she has just said, Mr. Speaker, and that is because of our stable, balanced and proportionate approach. And when never let it be forgotten, when Omicron presented itself, what did they go for? They reached for the lever of more restrictions. They said lockdown, Mr. Speaker. We said boosters. They carp from the sidelines. We get on with the job.